Last week I didn't quite get a chance to watch Blacklist when it aired on Thursday, and I just got behind. So I'm just going to kind of review them both today. Last week's episode was not awful. I mean, by Blacklist standards, it was still entertaining. But overall, it didn't add much to the story. It wasn't so compelling. It seemed to be a lot of setup for this week's episode. Last week, you basically had Dembe being kidnapped. I mean, that was really this essential focal point, and kind of going through him escaping and then kind of realizing that, oh my gosh, why can't I think of the actor? Paul Rubens' character was actually a betrayal, which was interesting because I believe, the previous season, he had created a fake betrayal for Reddington. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see. It was interesting to see that go full circle, to say the least. As well, so I would definitely give last week's episode 6.5 out of 10. I'm not going to describe too much more out of that. There wasn't much there by way of continuity. The storyline was okay. It was somewhat intriguing. The fact that the killer ended up being a man that was forcibly had a sex change to a woman, so that way, because he was gay, so that way he couldn't inherit his father's business. I mean, that was a very interesting twist, but beyond that, it was mediocre. This week's was much better. It kicks off with "You're confused. You seem like Agent Keen's dead," and then you kind of go through the episode and kind of realize that there's an assassin after her. They readily dispose of him, so then you begin to wonder what in the world, who is the villain? It's not actually Wendigo at all. It ends up basically just being this website, and that is a bounty that's a crowd-funded source, which was an interesting concept, and it's interesting. The show definitely is getting decent at relating current technology and kind of things, and kind of exploring and showing the audience that, which I find interesting. As well, then you also had what looked like Paul Rubens actually get them caught, but then luckily at the end, Dembe snuck in there, which I had a feeling, because really Paul Rubens didn't kill him, which was an interesting thing. That's why I didn't think he was actually going to die. I figured he would be tortured to kind of figure out what in the world, who is he giving this information to, but it ended up being Matthias, which you kind of knew. And from there, they get out, they use it to fake her death, to try and find out that it's this girl. And this was an interesting, heartfelt story, kind of. And it's kind of telling me that what I said 2 weeks ago is no longer going to be true. They're not going to explore the dark side of Agent Keen. They're going to allow her to continue to be that innocence, that herald, if you will, that's going to carry the flag forward and prove her innocence in a way that it will be somewhat gray, but will not see her dive into Reddington's territory. And I think it's something Red doesn't want to have anyways. So it's definitely interesting to see that piece. But beyond that, there was a touching moment there that actually was deeper and kind of explaining a few things, because the girl who put her name on this website was essentially the person who lost her mother in the urea bombing at the end of last season. So it was definitely a very good episode. Overall, I give it 8.5 out of 10. I'm really curious as to who, because I know the director, oh yeah, and that's another big thing. The director, of course, was involved. I skipped the whole Agent Wrestler piece. So Wrestler ended up having to deal with the director and the director of national security. So the director is the director of CIA. But also, it was the director of the Cabal, which they still haven't touched the Cabal yet in weeks, so I'm still not sure what the status of any of that is. Anyways, and now he is now part of the task force to hunt Reddington and Keen, which is going to be interesting, because from what I understand, the Cabal doesn't want him, but I think he's trying to use this as leverage. So this is kind of going to go where I'm going to theorize. I think he's going to try and use this as leverage to try and get into... what's the best way to say this? To basically get into power again, I guess. I don't know necessarily that he could ever fully regain it, because I have a feeling he's lost their trust, which I think the only reason why they don't kill him is because he is director of CIA, which would be a problem. Be a bit of a PR nightmare. But beyond that, I'm kind of interested to see who is hunting her so hard, because I don't get why they want her. Well, actually, it makes sense. They don't really want her dead. I actually thought, I was trying to figure out, like, why would the Cabal want her dead? At this point, they would rather just leave her alone, because the more news she makes, the more they get out there in the open. Even though it seems like the Director of National Intelligence is part of the Cabal, which it's too soon to say, and it could honestly just be that the president directed her to figure this out. And to be honest, if the president actually thinks it's a true terrorist, then the CIA and FBI do need to be working together, just like 9/11 protocol, because that was everything that was created. So it's believable for now. It's going to be interesting to kind of see where they go with that. My question big is still what Mateus wants with her. I don't get it, because I don't get why, like, he didn't want to kill either of them. He didn't want to kill both of them. He wanted to torture her for I don't know what reason, to get Reddington to give up stuff. I'm not sure. So I don't know where they're going with that. I figured they just wanted her dead or caught, regardless. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. I don't know if I care as much as I kind of did previously in the previous season, where things were kind of going and escalating. But the one, oh, and I forgot flipping Keen's storyline in his desperation to kind of help Liz and kind of prove Professor's love. That one is actually really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes, because at first it kind of seemed like Asher and his fiance, I guess, I think still at this point, seemed to be conning him. At least it seemed that way, because they seemed to be so cheesy. But then at the end, when they saw the dead body, I don't really think the con, I mean, that would take some serious con men if they've never seen it. Well, if they've seen dead bodies, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if he can actually get Karakut and find any information. So they definitely have got some good storylines going on through the episodes. Just hopefully they have less filler like they did last week. Last week just really wasn't that interesting. At least this week, they had all three storylines were really good. So you had Keen, you had Wrestler, and I definitely like where they're exploring the characters and pushing them to new boundaries. So they're definitely getting some interesting things going on there. I think I don't know if they're sure where they want to go with Keen and Raymond at this point, other than kind of to continue the process. It'll be interesting to see where they kind of go and end by the end of this season, because I'm not sure that they can continue to kind of have her teetering on that edge, because I have a feeling she's going to have to dive into Reddington's territory, or she's going to have to get caught. Because at some point, there's going to be a moment where she's going to have to do something to somebody who was innocent, and it may end up in death, and it'll be interesting to see. So far, she hasn't had to yet. Everyone has had the opportunity to survive. So it'll be interesting. Definitely, would definitely say, if you haven't caught any of this, wow, why are you watching my review? But cool, that's awesome. Glad you made it this far. Definitely check it out. As far as if you're, still trying to decide and you didn't listen to the first one because I gave you spoiler warnings and you're listening to this one, go figure. But anyways, definitely check it out, Blacklist. It's definitely worth the watch. You'll have a few mediocre episodes, but usually the mediocre episodes are better than most television. As well, if there's any questions you all want me to ask or any thoughts you all want to have, comment, put them on YouTube or iTunes or Stitcher. I'll definitely check them out. As well, you can email us at 3geekspodcast@gmail.com. And if I think that's pretty much it. So I hope everyone has a good night. And please like, rate, and review us on YouTube, Stitcher, and iTunes, please. Thank you.